So the third of the four arenas that we try to help you with, and the way we organize the work we do, is in the important work of simply providing a wide variety of support programs. And this is the area where I think it emerges and evolves most dramatically from year to year. Because what happens is, through the connections, you learn about different initiatives, or you bring up different challenges, and then you tell us about how we can help with those challenges. So there's really three things we're going to try to be able to do here. The first is, we want to talk a little bit about what we're doing in community building, and there's many, many, many areas that programs that are either available from us or from partners in terms of how do you build community. But one of the programs that we want to shed the spotlight on today, that we want each and every nation to adopt in their country, is one that we really got the DNA from the United States and from a program initiated by the Kauffman Foundation called 1 Million Cups. And we were very honored to be able to have one of the co-founders of that program from the US come and join us today. It's, as we know around the world in Gen, known as Startup Huddle. This is a very simple notion. I'll give one statement about it, and then I will like both Cameron Cushman and Ekaterina from CFE in Russia to talk about what this is and how they think it does it. But what we are trying to do with this is ultimately, A, build community, and B, every week help one entrepreneur at a time. So tell me about Startup Huddle. So I'm going to start with Russia today. Tell me how this program works and how it's been useful.
You see, I made such a good comment early on that they invited me to the stage. So this is the power of being active. But seriously speaking, I'm here because we launched a really, really powerful program called Startup Huddle in Russia. The first huddle went in May 2017. Then we had a little summer break, and already in October 2017, we launched it in 9 Russian cities straight away. And surprisingly, all cities keep up doing this program till now. And while I will disclose all our secrets on Wednesday, when we have the proper Startup Huddle session at 11 a.m., I just want to share 2 very important things why this program goes so well in Russia and in the US as well under 1 Million Cups name. So first of all, the program is entrepreneur-centered designed. That means that entrepreneurs are people who deal with the real world, like they act and they see real things happening. And that means that they need sometimes even hardcore feedback, what's happening, and really applied knowledge and practices. And Startup Huddle gives them this opportunity because they go to the stage, they have 5 minutes, they say, we need some help, or we need to test ideas, this and that. And then they receive feedback for 15 minutes exactly for the challenges or problems or ideas that they just posed. That means they have about 90% value for them at this moment. While if we're speaking about generally some other events, when other speakers talk for entrepreneurs, the value of these events for them sometimes 10, 20, 30%, because not the whole contexts apply for this entrepreneur's case. This is the first thing. So this program is really, really designed to support a single entrepreneur and his or her challenges, ideas, or problems. And the second thing is that this program enables to unite and build strong communities. So if you do the program at least once by month, and people are coming and they sharing comments and feedback in a very friendly way for 1 hour, you'll see in some time how connected these people become. And this is the big value for the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is strong when people are connected, they have belief in each other, they know each other, and they can very quickly exchange resources, ideas, whatever, when they need. So this defines a strong ecosystem. And for now, that's it. And I'll continue on Wednesday, but if Jonathan or, I guess, where's Jonathan, has any other questions to address now, I'll happily do it.
You did a fantastic job. I think that it's funny, one of the reasons, Ekaterina, we wanted to have you sit up here is for 20 years I've been fascinated in Russia when I first lived there as a young man. And it's very interesting to me because we don't tend to think of Russia as a place where you've got like vibrant local startup communities. A lot of people outside of Russia don't see that kind of side of it. And so I think this is very exciting to hear that this concept has been warmly received. And I want to really echo what Ekaterina said in the sense that it's not just, this is not just an informational program. You're going to get to see a live startup huddle, okay? You're going to get to see it done really, really well. This is going to be a global demo. This is one you want to come to. So be sure you've made a note of that on your map as to exactly where and when that's going to be. Cameron, you started your journey in entrepreneurship with the Kauffman Foundation. You now live in Fort Worth. You're a startup community guy associated with the business community. But you were very much part of getting this concept off the ground. And I remember when I first heard about it, I was like, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like there's much there. It sounds like it's just another, weekly startup getting together. What is it? So tell us how 1 million cups turned into something in the United States very successful, and why you think this concept is valuable to ecosystems around the world.
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks for having me. It's been great to be here. So you're exactly right. 1 million cups and its success really surprised us as well. So rewind the clock about 6 years, and I was recently moved into a new role at the Kauffman Foundation to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kansas City. I had just brought on my intern. I'd hired him on full time, and his name was Nate Olson. And I said, Nate, how many entrepreneurs in Kansas City can you name? Because it's probably pretty important we should know these guys if we're going to be working with them and trying to help them along their own journey. And probably like many of you, I was kind of thrown into this entrepreneurial community building world and really wasn't sure where to start. So I said, okay, well, Nate, how many entrepreneurs in Kansas City can you name? He couldn't get off one hand, and neither could I. And so we said, okay, well, what if we just invited these guys in for coffee and tell us what they're working on? So we picked these two, and we brought them together on a Wednesday morning at the Kauffman Foundation. We had 12 people in the audience. It started super small. And we just had these two startups tell us what they were working on. And the crowd engaged. We learned about them. They learned about us, and some of the questions and the feedback that the audience gave them turned out to be really beneficial. And so then we went to the next two and the next two. And the presenters who had presented the week before came back because they wanted to hear the stories of the other entrepreneurs who were presenting. The guys who were presenting in the future that we had booked 2 or 3 weeks out, they came in advance to see what this thing was. It's somewhere along the way we named it 1 million cups because we had the idea that if you could create a program around, if you could drink 1 million cups of coffee with your local entrepreneurs, it would fundamentally change the way that your city or your ecosystem thought about entrepreneurs. So it was all built around just drinking cups of coffee in the morning with entrepreneurs. We had no intention of scaling this, but in Kansas City it started to slowly take off. We had 12 the first week, we had 15 the next week, we had 50 people a few months later. We had to move to a bigger room because we had hundreds of people starting to show up at this thing. And about 9 months later, we had a guy come from Des Moines and said, hey, this is pretty cool. Can I bring this to Des Moines, Iowa? Sure. We had no idea. It is now completely taken off and is in about 160, 170 cities in the United States and is now, thank you, yes. It has now taken on a life of its own internationally. So we're going to be talking a lot about Startup Huddle tomorrow. Wednesday at 11. So if you want to come see, we'll actually be doing 2 groups on this. The first one is Wednesday at 11. We'll be talking more in depth on the history. We'll be talking more about why it's important for your startup community. And as Jonathan said, it is the simplest thing. All you do is bring coffee and entrepreneurs and the community together. The community always learns something. The entrepreneurs get to practice their pitch in front of a live studio audience before they get in front of those investors, before they get in front of potential customers. They get to validate their ideas. And it's become a really transformative program in the United States just because, and I want to leave with this, if you don't know who the entrepreneurs are in your local economy and your local ecosystem, then you don't know how to help them. And so 1 Million Cups is this great way to bring those entrepreneurs out from behind the shadows, out of the woodwork, and give them a platform and an opportunity to just tell you what they're working on. And it gives the community a fantastic chance to engage them in a formal sense, but also in a very informal sense that is really transformative for the trajectory of these startups. So we're super excited to be able to continue to launch this and expand it internationally through Startup Huddle. So again, I hope you guys will come and hang out with us Wednesday at 11, and you can learn more about Startup Huddle and watch us put on a fake one that will hopefully give you an idea of how you can do it in your own communities.
A fake one? I thought we were going to see who wants to be
there you go.
International one. International.
I have some entrepreneurs you
So, Cameron, let me ask you one quick follow-up question. So, we've got many of our communities that do pitch nights. One of the things that I always loved when I first heard about this idea was, and I don't know whether this is appropriate to phrase it like this in an international audience, but people said to me it's like Alcoholics Anonymous for entrepreneurs. So what I meant by that is that it's a question of standing up and being vulnerable in front of your own community, and which is harder when it's very local because everybody knows each other. It's also a question of being vulnerable about what we all talk about. People like to stand up and give speeches about, the problem of entrepreneurship outside the United States is there's a fear of failure, and it's not working. That's dissipating. But in a way, the entrepreneur has to stand up and say, here's the challenges I'm facing, help me, what do I do about it? Or they also can say, by the way, this part's really good. Am I right about that? Or is it much closer to a pitch night?
No, absolutely. It's interesting. Last summer, I had the opportunity to sit on the other side of 1 Million Cups and actually presented a startup of my own. And it was super fun and exhilarating, but also really nerve-wracking. Oh my goodness, I should have the best pitch of anybody, but you still have to put your slides together. You still have to talk through and think through what it is exactly you're going to portray. And then you have this nervous moment when those first questions begin. It's like, oh no, what are people going to ask me? Literally, the first guy asked me a question. He's like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And your heart sinks and you don't know what to do. But you're an entrepreneur and you got to figure it out. I like to say, Jonathan, too, that 1 Million Cups is kind of like the front porch of entrepreneurship. And so if you're not sure where to plug in, if you're not sure, you have an idea about entrepreneurship, but you're not sure, come and you're going to find your tribe. Or you're not going to find your tribe, and that's okay. Go back to your day job, go back to whatever it is that you're doing. But it's a great way to take that initial step. I like to, it was interesting. 1 Million Cups started to take off about the time that Shark Tank became popular in the United States. TV show, pitch-oriented. It's called Dragon's Den and a bunch of other places around the world. You guys know the show, right? You probably have them in your own community. And I say it's like Shark Tank, but it's friendly. So it's like a dolphin tank, right? So, and I'm not sure what the dragon equivalent is on the other side, but it's a great way to get in front of people, practice that pitch in front of a friendly audience. But it can be a little nerve-wracking when you're up there as an entrepreneur. And that's okay. That's exactly the environment you want to create in your cities.
Fantastic. Great. We're all coming.
Great.
So I'd like, if we can, to move on to a program I referenced this morning in the context of what I consider to be super interesting work when we get to go to places with unique challenges. And we're working currently in Iraq on our Global Enterprise Registration Program. We're very honored to have both of you here with us today, talk a little bit about GER and what it is and how it works and who's it helping. So I'm going to invite you both to make some comments, but do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thanks.
Thanks once again for the opportunity to be here and present it. GER, or Global Enterprise Registration.
You might want to introduce yourself too.
Of course, yeah. So my name is Enes Banda. I come from Montenegro. The last title I got is the business facilitation expert. So I'm not sure how of an expert I am, but I spent the last 2 years working on the GER and the similar platforms, helping governments simplify and clarify the business registration procedures, and in final stimulate entrepreneurship and ease their process of getting their business into formal channels. So when it comes to GER, as you may have known, it's initiative of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, the GEN, and the United States Department of State. It was initiated in 2014, and in last 2 years it went through its own development phases. So far we only have 56 countries in the world that actually do not have their data within the GER platform. And I try to use this word platform, I try to avoid it because it refers to something that's static, while the GER.co is an action platform actually. It allows governments to assess their websites, their business registration websites, in a manner so they can see actually how good it is according to the standards, to the criteria that we have developed at GER. So I would avoid speaking of the specific methodology because we have the session tomorrow as well. So if you're interested, you can come to see more in-depth analysis of the methodology that GER is implementing or applying when assessing the websites. But when it comes to how it works, it actually, in 2014 and 15, when it was initiated, we went through the business registration websites of all the countries in the world, actually. So every country that had a certain either single window business registration portal or just information portal related to the business registration was taken into consideration and rated, and the results were published through the GER. So there is, as I mentioned, there is 56 countries at the moment that do not have their either single point websites or information websites related to business registration listed on the GER. That's why the GER has initiated Go Green by 2019 campaign, where we invited all governments that have not rated their websites up until now to do so, so we can help them, improve it in case it's needed. When it comes to the those two, let's say, options that the governments can choose to go with, the one is single window, and the best single window is the one that actually helps user carry out all application procedures related to business registration in one step, in the second step to pay for that, and then in the third step to obtain all the certificates. So that's why it's called the single window, because it gathers all different institutions when normally a user would have to go, one by one at one place and then provides one result at the end. While the information portal is more rich in content, because it provides, let's say, a contact or the address of the institution where users have to go in order to obtain certain result. It lists the specific results a user have to obtain in order to have his or her business registered. Then the legal requirements for every single step that the user have to take, as well as the legal justification for each of those steps. Of course, the time duration and the cost of the procedures are listed as well, including the possibility to provide feedback in case, if something is stated on the website as a part of the procedure and the person that is at the counter at the institution is not following that, then the user has to have the mechanism, to provide that institution with feedback that something is not as they promised it's going to be. So that's what the GER platform makes, or the business information platform makes so valuable. You have the opportunity to see all the information, so it's clear, and once the procedure is clear, the government or we at GER and UNCTAD have the opportunity to make it more simple. So once you know all the steps, you can see what steps are obsolete and make the amount of time that you need for registration much shorter. Yeah, that should be pretty much regarding these two platforms. In case there are many cases where governments were not able to produce such a quality platform for registering businesses or providing businesses with information. Therefore, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development has developed two, let's say, low-cost options for governments. The one is called e-registration, and the second one is e-regulation. So my friend will say you more information regarding the e-regulations.
Great. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Josiah Mugo. I come from Kenya. On the aspect of the e-regulations, actually, as a country, what we realized, we started by implementing the single window system, and it has been there for quite some time now. But we realized there was a gap. Already there is a single window system, but people don't know actually at what particular step or at what particular time do they need to interact with the system. So that one now made us come up with a platform which we could actually detail step by step what, from a trader's point of view, what they need to do for them to actually complete a certain procedure from the beginning to the end. At what particular time they need to interact with whatever government agency and what it takes to be able to get the output from a particular government agency. In other words, we have come up with a system which works the journey of a trader from the beginning to the end, from a trader's point of view. You may realize majority of the government agencies just know they are broke of what is required of them. But now what we have done, we have combined all this and ensured it's flowing from the beginning to the end. Then after that, the concept brought forth another one. We realized now the traders we need to open up even to these guys who have absolutely no idea on how to do business with the government. So that's now we came up with another website, another good site which you actually will be able to demonstrate tomorrow in the afternoon, of now the young people who want to be the new entrepreneurs. How now do they do business with the government? Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. I really want to encourage you to think about this because from a perspective of creating efficiencies, we're looking for any kind of tools that are going to really enable you to make the entrepreneurial experience for your startups and small businesses as user-friendly as possible. And one of the great things, and you talked about this, that this is achieving is we're moving a lot of people from the informal economy into the formal economy. One of the things I heard in the very early days, and I can't remember if it was in Tanzania or in Kenya, was the concept of, what if we can give everybody a card that looks like a regular driver's license, and it's got the word entrepreneur. And I may not be fully in the economy yet, but I'm at least in the GR, at least I've got my business registration part of this stuff done. So I think there's a sense of dignity around that I think is really exciting. So I really want to encourage you, if you're interested in this platform, either you or a member of your delegation, to come to this session on global enterprise registration. It's as was indicated, it's a deep long-term partnership we have with the State Department and with UNCTAD. And we see this as being something. I didn't know that we were that far along. You said there's only 50 countries that we don't have. You don't have 56 countries left to go. Can we tell everybody later? We'll put it up on the screen. Which countries we don't have, and then we may have their ministers here, and maybe we'll get to work on that. So
I have managed to put them on one slide, so it's already prepared. The thing is that it's not that hard, to put your country on the website, because especially if the country has some kind of either single point business registration website or information website. So the GER actually provides the self-assessment option at a website. So you just have to go to the website, type the name of the country, and then to see what's being listed there.
Great. Well, thank you both very much indeed. Really appreciate that. I wanted to have a chance to bring not just some programs, some Gen programs that we've got, but also to turn to a couple of our partners, and there will be many partners here at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, but there's two particularly important partners we have. The first, as many of you know, is the Kauffman Foundation, which has really been the foundation of anything that we've done at Gen, both intellectually and in terms of resources and in terms of really making everything we do possible. And really, we're really honored, Philip, to have you, Philip Gaskin from the Kauffman Foundation. We wanted to have a chance to also hear from the State Department. Now, we have some people directly from the State Department here, but we wanted to have Sarah come, who's managing the Global Innovation Through Science and Technology Initiative, GIST, which actually is having, as we speak, as part of the Congress, Science and Technology, the Tech Eye Awards going on so we're bringing some really awesome tech startups here to be competing for prizes. But there are two great examples of two big institutions that are working very closely on entrepreneurship. And I wanted to have a chance, first of all, I'll start with you, Sarah, in the context of, GIST comes to us through the State Department, but I should mention that these are examples of the kinds of things you can do with your government. And I will say from Jen's perspective, we've been able to be the implementing partner of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit every year for 10 years. We are able to do projects like the GER program in Iraq. We're able to do programs in Africa where we did a multitude of ecosystem building programs through the Office of Partnerships. And we have a long list actually of things where we've collaborated with the US Department of State. One where we're particularly excited because it brings us face to face with the people we all serve, namely the people that are the entrepreneurs, is the GIST program. So, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about GIST and how we're working together? That'd be great.
Absolutely. So could I get a show of hands? Does anyone actually know GIST before this? Few hands? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, the Global Innovation Through Science and Technology Initiative tries to get scientists and technologists out of their labs and creating commercialized startups. In part because there's just so much economic capacity locked behind this academic shroud. I'm a scientist by trade, so I can speak on my own community. But there's this idea that we create publications, that maybe you get patents, but that's good enough. Maybe you have a tech transfer office, you expect them to magically, create value and license that on your behalf. But it's a challenge that we see in the United States, and it's a challenge that we see around the world. And so through pitch competitions like Tech Eye that Jonathan mentioned, through in-country boot camps, through monthly online trainings, we try to both embolden scientists to see themselves as potential startups and entrepreneurs, as well as to give themselves the resources so that they can be successful. Through a mentorship, we partner with Jen, thankfully, on, if you go to gistnetwork.org, through a variety of tools. There we do Tech Connects, which are monthly online programs. In fact, we're going to be running one from the GEC tonight. I encourage you to tune in. It could be exciting. If you guys would like to do cameos, let me know. We also have a mentor match portal, which again is trying to create and facilitate individuals connecting with each other. Right now we have over 300 mentors that can do everything from answer a single question, because sometimes that's all you need, to actually creating more durable mentorship relationships. And we don't try to pick winners. We don't try to decide how people need to be able to interact. All we try to do is, there's a lot of smart people in this room, is give you the resources that we have to bear on this and connect you so that you can really take off. So Jen has been instrumental. Obviously, you guys are a tremendous family and network that we're very proud to be a very small part of. But I want you to also think about the State Department as a partner. We work with NGOs, we work with the private sector. Jonathan alluded to awards that are being given away today. We are so thankful both here and at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit that groups like Amazon Web Services, like Cognizant, Dell, and Microsoft are willing to partner with us to be able to put tools and resources into the hands of entrepreneurs. And you can also benefit, and you also know the entrepreneurs on the ground so that they can benefit to the largest degree possible. GIST is a relatively small program, but I encourage you to go out and meet the econ officers at your local embassies and consulates, in addition to, perhaps requesting a GIST boot camp. I would be very happy about that. There are things called public diplomacy grants. And so you want to do something for Global Entrepreneurship Week. You can reach out to your embassy or consulate, and they can help you with, perhaps a small grant to be able to help make those events a reality. And so we aren't the solution, but we would like to be your partner as you go forward and try to make change in the world.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think, there'll be other people from the State Department arriving today, actually. And,
Yep.
there'll be there's plenty of interest, I should tell you, from the State Department in partnering with you on the ground, because they want to be part of the solution. And if you're in a foreign affairs agency, part of your mission, and certainly in the State Department, is to promote peace and stability around the world and good diplomatic relations. And it's funny how, certainly in the United States, I think one of the most prominent tools and strategies to do that has been entrepreneurship. And so I certainly think that you've got a very willing partner with the State Department in doing this. And I wanted to really shed the spotlight on GIST because these guys do it better than anybody else. They are absolutely first class in really keeping this granular, keeping it about the actual quality of the support that's given to the entrepreneurs. And of course, we shouldn't expect anything else from scientists. This is when I love it when you take you take an entrepreneurship program and you embed it in a science community. So I want to say, Sarah, we're really honored and flattered that we have our relationship with you, and we're excited and hope that we'll be able to get more and more people involved in that over the course of time. So, well, thank you very much. So Philip, I naturally left you to last because, and I called Philip on the stage, even though, as I said earlier, the general modesty in the Kauffman Foundation is very prominent in the character of that institution. It's all about listening, learning, enabling, facilitating, and there isn't a single person at the foundation I don't run into who says it's not about me. In fact, Victor said to me today, he says, please don't give me those call outs on the stage. I just want to sit in the back over there and listen to what's going on. So, which means that our partnership with you is clearly one that we honor so much. It's amazing. If people don't ask anything of you, it's amazing how much you want to do everything you can to please them. But I think the important thing, Philip, I wanted to ask you about is, can you give us, a lot of people in this community have had a knowledge of the foundation and have sort of had some knowledge of the work the foundation's been doing over the last 10 years. But I think there's a keen interest in learning a little bit if there's 2 or 3 things that you would like to emphasize that are key to the foundation's strategy right now as to where are you going, where are you thinking? We're reading a lot, we're looking at a lot, we're seeing things, but can you give us some insights? Because I know many of us know that when you guys get into figuring out what should we be doing, you answer that question very thoroughly and very carefully. And so I know a lot of us look to the Foundation for thought leadership. We just like to have a sense of, what's the guidance of a big institution like the Foundation? I shouldn't say big, but shall I say an important institution like the Foundation to those of us sort of intellectually as we map our path forward. Thanks.
Sure, and thank you, all of you. Kauffman Foundation, most people remember us in the last 10 years of being an institution focused on, if you will, being a think tank and publishing information, our indexes and research and reports on what we think of the field of entrepreneurship. Kauffman has pivoted now to be more of an active participant and an advocate, if you will, for entrepreneurs. And our main goal in the entrepreneurship department now is how do we reduce the barriers to success that entrepreneurs are having. And we look at that through 3 lenses. One is through the individual lens, and that's in our new entrepreneurial learning area, of which 1 Million Cups and Fast Track sit. And then we look at it through the community lens. And so and we've heard so much about community in this panel and then earlier today. How do we study communities to make them the most interactive, most effective networks of people so that the entrepreneurial stages from the idea phase all the way to operations and scale happen much quickly, so that entrepreneur is able to have as many barriers removed as possible, regardless of demographic. If we go back to Mr. Kauffman, what he said, that everyone has a fundamental right to an education and to economic independence. And so when we look at communities, there are so many different things that get in the way of success. Research that we've done Aaron Chatterley's research down at Duke University at North Carolina, looking at the 40 different steps that an entrepreneur goes through from the time they start with that idea to the time that they start the business. They get tripped up on the first three, and the first three are really easy. Those are things like, who can I be introduced to? Who can I talk to? What resources do I have? And what happens is they end up giving up. Too many of them give up too soon because they churn in those first steps that should be really, really easy. That's because the ecosystems, the communities aren't connected well enough. And so our work is going to be through the learning and testing of different practices, and some of those are in our first iteration of our playbook, Kauffman.org/playbook. You can take a look at it and just see what are those things that have to happen in order to make a community more vibrant. The third pillar remains our research, which we've now called knowledge creation and research, which is now looking at what are the things that are working and not working out there in the nation and the world regarding entrepreneurship, and what are the different levers that can be pulled in order to make it easier for both the individual and for the community itself for entrepreneurs to succeed.
Great. Philip, one of the programs you mentioned was Fast Track.
Yeah.
Many of the Global Entrepreneurship Network community, I see Eric from Russia, a couple of others have used Fast Track in the past. We didn't talk about it yet. Can you just give us a 30-second update on what's happened with Fast Track recently in terms of those programs?
Absolutely. You might remember, those of you may know of Fast Track. Previously, the platform was affiliate-based, so there were certain affiliates that could provide the Fast Track training, and it was fee-based. It is now online and completely free of charge. Again, this is removing a barrier of access for entrepreneurs to have the information that they need in order to learn how to start a business, get in the game of being an entrepreneur, how to start a business and how to grow it. And then once they establish that, is then providing them more tools on how to become more networked, et cetera, like I mentioned before. So again, Kauffman moving to being more of an advocate and an active participant, removing as many barriers as possible.
Great. Well, thank you. And I want to point out a couple of things. One, there's only a few hours left. Is there anybody that didn't complete the survey? You're not going to hold up your hand, are you? We really want to ask you a few questions. So if you didn't complete the survey we sent you online, please click on that. It'll literally take you 2 or 3 minutes. It's not a long survey. Please do that. Secondly, the Kauffman Foundation is interviewing those who are spending time trying to figuring out how to build their ecosystem at the Kauffman Foundation. We actually call it if you want, it's their area, it's the booth, but it's the ecosystem learning hub that is set up. You can't miss it. It's very big. It's right outside the plenary room. But I hope if you're interested in learning more about what the foundation has to offer directly, either in terms of things like, as an example, free online fast track tool. But if you're interested in learning more about what the foundation's doing, and in particular, if you're willing to give feedback to the Ecosystem Building Playbook 1.0, Andy's here on your team, I know, Philip, if you want to add something else about that. But how can they give feedback on that playbook, or give the foundation feedback on what's happening in their ecosystem?
Sure, there's 2 different ways to do that. As was just mentioned, we'll have workstations outside where you can view the playbook, look at it live, give feedback on it. But in your own leisurely time, you can go on Kauffman.org/playbook, and you can actually make comments, and you'll see that people are making comments from all over the world regarding some of our 7 design principles to ecosystem building and other things that are in there. So this is, it's crowdsourced. As again, it's not about us, it's about serving entrepreneurs and ecosystem builders. So feel free to chime in and comment, and it helps us when we look at future versions of the playbook. So
great. Well, thank you all very much. I know that we could continue these conversations for hours, but the good news is we can, because on each of the things you've heard about this afternoon, there are deep dives occurring over the course of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So please, we understand that you may have questions. That was the purpose of the session, was to stimulate your interest in these, to stimulate your interest in going and spending more time. In case of the Kauffman Foundation, Victor Huang will be on the plenary stage on Tuesday afternoon. And certainly we have many other programs. Obviously, we hope you're going to go and participate and see what's happening at the finale of the Tech Eye Awards, and you can meet Sarah, learn more about GIST. I know we have a special session, as we mentioned, on gr.co, and we obviously have the first, I think it's our first global demo of Startup Huddle. So we're really keen to invite you to go to any of those that you think that you'd like to learn more about, maybe get involved in and use. And just remember, there is almost nothing that we do at GEN at the global level in our vertical work that ever costs you a dime. It's very important for you to understand that. At GEN, there is no money that comes from the local states that goes up at the global level. Every now and again, there's something that for some legal reason you have to buy a license, but it's usually a token type of cost. So I want to very much mention these programs are here. If you use them, we'll keep them. And if you tell us how they're working or not working, and especially if they're not working, we hope you'll tell us, look, this isn't actually addressing the real problem we've got. Here's the problem we're trying to address. And the purpose of our very healthy partnerships with third parties, and indeed the purpose of these programs, is to really serve you. So I hope you'll tell us, give us feedback, positive and otherwise, and help us make sure that any of the support we do in the future at GEN is the most useful and valuable to you, because we're not doing it because you're paying us, we're doing it because we want it to work for you. So thank you very much.